Hello guys, welcome back. So this video is going to be centered around something that I came across last week and is in the title and everything like that. We're going to be going over it. But really, I want you to think about this from an economics perspective instead of just the news side of things, which we'll get into. And then I've got some specific numbers that I want to throw at you about this, which aren't in this article. And I doubt anybody has even thought about. But essentially, what this is, anyway, let's just get right into it. I'm not going to delay anymore. So, 1.7 million Canadians on the hook for 2020 CERB repayments, says Ottawa. So for those of you that don't know and aren't from Canada, the CERB program was one of Canada's essentially stimulus programs to stimulate the economy during the pandemic. So basically, it was called the Canada Emergency Response benefit. That was it. Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So it was called CERB. And it was coined as CERB. But anyway, the thing about this program is it was widely used when everybody was initially laid off in 2020. A lot of people went straight on and applied for the government program that was available at the time, which was EI. Now, this was very early on, which is just standard employment benefits here in Canada. And basically, the Canadian government came out and said, no, we're going to do more than that. And we're going to bring out this benefit called the CERB or CERB, as I'm going to refer to it in this. So basically, the CERB program was a stimulus program. And the stimulus program also, what it did, which I just thought was hilarious because I thought, this is going to end badly, and it sure as hell is ending badly, as usual. Anything that this nonsensical clown Trudeau comes out of his mouth is just a load of garbage. But this program was just a total joke. And the one thing that was about this program, anyway, I'm getting off topic, is the fact that it didn't withhold taxes. So a lot of people were going to be left with the tax bill for all the money that they got with the CERB because it was paid out without being taxed at all. And it was done for obvious reasons, in my opinion, which is it was trying to stimulate the economy. You know, the government was thinking, hey, we're going to hand out all this money from the money tree and everybody is going to be able to pay us back those taxes down the road. We'll worry about that one later. And another thing which I just thought was bonkers, and at the time I didn't realize how widespread it really was how many people were getting double payments for this program. And I think really this was done on purpose. And the reason it was left so long has been done on purpose because they really wanted to give out as much money as possible to try and stimulate the economy. They certainly did that. The savings rate obviously spiked. Demand went through the roof for everything. And that's why we ended up with supply chain issues. The same thing that happened in the United States happened in Canada. Yes, it did. A lot of people had never seen as much money as they were now getting through this program. So it was just a total failure of a program. But anyway, let's get so David's saying, so let me get this right. So I can write down there isn't a magic money tree. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right about that, my friend. Anyway, okay, so 1.7 million Canadians on the hook for 2020 CERB repayments, says Ottawa. Advanced CERB payments of $2,000 are being clawed back from some recipients, according to the government of Canada. And I did the math for you here. So 1.7 million, if they all owe 2,000, which we know it's going to be way more than that, just $2,000, 1.7 million people, that is $3.4 billion. So that's a lot of money that is being sucked out in quantitative tightening. And this is essentially tightening of the money supply by the government. And a lot of people aren't going to see it that way. And this is how I wanted to describe it to you guys, is you have to think about this. The stimulus that was given out, that was real cash. That wasn't the credit supply, which was the QE and the bank reserves. The deficit spending that was done by the government and the stimulus money that was given out, that was real influx, cash influx to the economy. And the thing is, that is now being strangled and took away, and all at a time when people cannot afford it. And it's, I'm finding it hilarious, not because of what's going on for the people this is happening to. Believe me, I feel for those people. Like, it's terrible, obviously, if you're in bad circumstances. I'm laughing because the government is just a joke. They're just some of the stuff they do, it seems like a great idea at the time, not so much 2 years later. But anyways, let's get into this. So people line up at Service Canada office in Montreal on Thursday. All right, that's the photo I was just describing. So about 1.7 million Canadians have fallen into debt with the federal government after Service Canada determined they needed to repay up to $2,000 in COVID-19 emergency payments. Dubbed the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, Ottawa rushed $2,000 in emergency supports to Canadians shortly after the pandemic began in 2020. This advance payment was to be repaid by reducing regular CERB payments over the course of 2020. But many of those who received the advance payment did not repay it, as they did not remain on CERB. Now those recipients are receiving notices of debt according to ESDC, which manages social benefits and services via Service Canada. A total of 1.7 million clients were unable to fully reconcile this advance repayment, and therefore will have a debt established, a ministry spokesperson for Employment and Social Development Canada told Glacier Media in an email. The notices of these debts to Service Canada will continue to be established over the next couple of months. The spokesperson added that the federal government will work with Canadians who owe money to establish flexible repayment schedules with an eye to their ability to pay. The ministry did not answer questions of how much money could be collected, but not every case will garner a full $2,000 repayment, the ministry indicated. I don't see how that's going to be the case, but anyways, the $2,000 payment was issued urgently in order to provide immediate income support to Canadians when they needed it most, said the spokesperson. So before we go on, I just want to mention something real quick. This payment that came out, it was essentially, it went to loads of people that lived overseas. It went to loads of people who don't even live in Canada. I mean, the whole thing was just a total joke from the start. It was just completely rushed to write as many checks, get as many checks in the mail as possible, despite the fact they might even be going to other countries. They might even be going to people who don't even live in the country anymore. So it was kind of just a joke. But there were about 1 million Canadians whose advance payment was eventually repaid in the summer when regular CERB payments were lowered to compensate for it. To clarify, the repayments are unrelated to tax filings. So tax filings are on top of these payments. So when I said about these people owe money because they weren't taxed, because CERB at the very beginning wasn't taxed, they're going to owe their tax money on this as well. Overall, CERB payments assisted 8 million workers and their family members during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the ministry. The repayment of advance payments are not connected to a round of ineligible payments made to self-employed individuals that came to head in the lead up to last year's tax deadline. At the time, the federal government sought repayments to those with 2019 gross income of at least $5,000. It later backed down due to reported miscommunication on its part. So it's pretty interesting, guys, I got to say, because this is essentially quantitative tightening. This is essentially the government just tightening that money supply. They're doing it in ways that you and I wouldn't normally think of, but nevertheless, they are taking money out of that money supply. And it's very interesting to me. And if we go over to the Canada household savings rate, let's see how that's doing. You can see here that obviously it spiked when all the stimulus came out here, and now it's coming right back down to earth. So you can see here that this is only February 2022 is the last report. So when you think about it, when we get to like May or June's reports later in the year, you could probably see it being down this level, down the real bottom, scraping the barrel along the bottom here. That all this money, all this savings that everybody had due to the massive government stimulus that was done is totally gone. It's totally lost. So it's very, very interesting to me that all this has happened. But you know, the one thing that I just don't think people will realize about this is the fact that it's such a large number when you really think about it. $3.5 billion in deposits. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to take out the system. No question of a doubt. All at a time when they're already tightening the credit supply, and it's just a recipe for disaster. All these things are just converging on each other at the same time. And I just think it's absolutely insane to think that this is going to have no consequence at all. It's going to have massive consequences. People are going to be spending less. And I want to thank the person who commented on one of the videos or streams, and he basically said this, and I think I pinned his comment, that he got one of these notices saying that he owed $2,000 and he could afford it. But what about those people who can't afford it? What about all those people who just applied for it and they didn't really need it, like they weren't eligible for it? All those people are going to be starting to have the hammer come down on them now, as the government is looking to claw back this money because they're paying more interest. They need more money. Their bonds are skyrocketing, as we know. We've covered many times on this channel. So I think it's kind of insane. It's just really, really insane. Jeff's in the house here, and he says CERB was not about bailing out people. It was about bailing out the banks, plain and simple. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, yeah, because essentially people weren't going to be able to meet their obligations. No way. And they had to stuff something in there to get the economy going. And I think that's why it was a lot of cases where people were double paid, was the fact that they did it on purpose. They wanted it to be that way, and they knew it was going to be like that way by design. These people aren't that stupid. That's what people think. People think, oh, the government's really stupid. They aren't really that stupid, and they'll always come back to you if you owe them money. They'll always find you if you owe $5. You know, after I filed my taxes last year, I think I got some notice around September saying that I owed like $10 or $15 because of some checking account, no, a savings account I had at some other bank or something like that. The interest that was generated on the like nothing interest rate that I was getting in that bank account. But I was laughing my head off. I was like, $15. Like it probably cost $2 or $3 to mail this stupid letter. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. But you know, I find it a socialist would argue that $2,000 wasn't enough. Yeah, you're right about that. And I mean, the UK, they didn't do this. They went a different way, which was furlough. And that program was just an absolute disaster. I mean, basically the furlough scheme was the government paid people's wages, fully paid people's wages. But the only conditions were they could not work. So they could not be at work. They had to be off. And loads of people took advantage of that furlough. And I can remember reading about all the business owners that said, everybody just wants to be on furlough and we can't get any of the staff to come back. Everybody, I was just laughing my head off, because you give people the free run on this, and of course they're going to want to do it. Of course they're not going to want to work, and they're just going to want to take the free money. I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're going towards this serfdom economy of just surfers, basically. And it's just the way it is. But really, it's kind of crazy. And Daniel says they act stupid, but man, you can really see the evil in the eyes of the Liberal government. You know what their end goal is. I mean, their end goal is just power, to get more and more power from the people at the end of the day. That's what I think it's all about. There's another article that I want to go through here, but I feel like I should probably do it on another live stream, because it's sort of unrelated to what we're going through at the moment. But maybe I will do that on another live stream, actually. But anyway, like this whole Vancouver is Awesome article about 1.7 million Canadians on the hook for this CERB repayments. Like, this is going to have such drastic consequences. Like 3.4 billion is a lot of money to take out of the banking system at any time in deposits. But at a time when banks are looking for more deposits, because the central bank is taking away their bank reserves that they gave them, and they're looking like they are looking around, scratching their head right now. And as housing prices go down, which they will go down as rates go up, they're going to need those deposits more and more, and there's going to be less and less of them. And people are getting more and more suspicious of the Canadian financial system after what happened in the Freedom Convoy with the truckers and everything, when they froze people's bank accounts. That really changed people's outlook on the Canadian financial system. And my friend who works at Silver Gold Bull, he told me, he said, like, the amount of people that were ordering silver and gold that week, it went through the roof when Canada came out and said that we're freezing all these truckers' bank accounts. So, you know, it is just insanity to me that people think that they can do this and there's going to be no consequences. And at the end of the day, this is just a government with nothing left in their arsenal, really, just scraping at something to try and get a handle on inflation. But they really have no idea that the damage they're doing isn't going to be seen instantly. It's going to be seen down the road. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I think it's gonna be seen in time, guys, and in time and in due course. So anyway, I'm gonna see what's going on in the chat here, see if there's any questions, see who's in the house. So we got D-Man, we got David Sutton from Vietnam, I think. HP. Trent is in the house. Daniel is in the house. We've got Jeff in the house. We've got, who else in the house? Marco's in the house. Trader 586. Yeah, so anyway, it's yeah, war came at a pretty convenient time for this too, eh? Yeah, it really did, didn't it? Because yeah, the narrative's now switched from all the stuff about the pandemic to everything's now about the war, and just forget about the pandemic. And, you know, it's kind of crazy how that narrative just switched, and a lot of people just didn't really notice. And a lot of people got suckered in and just thought, oh, now I believe everything the media says, because they're not going to possibly lie about a war. And it's just like, I mean, there's a lot of different wars going on. There are a lot of people that are suffering all over the world right now. It's not just people in Ukraine. And I think it's kind of bad in a way that they're just shining the light on this one terrible thing that's going on, whilst at the same time they supply weapons to the Saudis to fund a war that's killing loads of innocent civilians in Yemen. So it's just it's a total hypocrisy, as we've discussed it many times. Investment in gold, can you talk about it? In what way do you want me to talk about it? I mean, gold for me is not an investment as such, it's more of an insurance policy. So, gold to me is an insurance policy on the money that I have, the fiat money, the cash. So, essentially, if my gold ever went to like $100,000 per ounce, that would be because the Canadian dollar has collapsed, which is possible. It's totally possible. And this isn't financial advice. But gold to me is that insurance policy. It's not an investment. I'm not looking for it to go up in value over a certain time. I'm not looking for it to be an inflation hedge, even. That's not what I'm looking for. Gold to me is, and I'm talking about physical gold. I'm not talking about buying GLD or buying gold stocks. I'm talking about physical gold. Now, buying gold stocks, that is speculating on the price of gold. And I do have gold stocks. But the thing is, I would not buy them now. That's not financial advice. But again, I wouldn't buy them at this high price. But the thing is, gold, the actual physical metal, is just an insurance policy. And I believe this isn't financial advice, that everybody should own at least a little bit of gold and silver just to have that insurance policy on their money. Everybody needs this. Everybody needs this insurance policy on their money. USB in first again with this super chat, dude. You do not have to keep giving these super chats, but thank you so much. I appreciate your support. In 2008, Canada never really crashed like the US. Can you comment on how Canada will do compared to the US next time? Yeah, so great point. So we have to bring up a chart for that. So let me get that ready. And this is going to be a great question for a lot of people as well. So thanks for asking it. So let me try and find that chart. I've talked about it before, but I will talk about it again because I think it is incredibly important. So, and we have to bring up a historical chart here of debt. And this is private debt. So this is debt held by corporations here in Canada. Let me get this on a line chart so you can see. So I want to draw your attention to before 2008 here, that this was very flat here. And you can see that it was flat and it was stable. It was up and down, but it was very stable, rising very slowly. And you can see that during the dot-com bubble, Canada didn't really have a dot-com bubble. If you look at the private debt, there wasn't really huge debt. And you know, this brings an incredible point that I want to make, is if Canada had a big dot-com bubble, they would have had the same outcome from 2008. And now we'll get to a chart of US private debt because we need to bring that up. And this will have an effect. Line 50-year chart. Okay, so now I'm going to bring up the US. Okay, so if you look at the US chart, you can see that we've got 1995 again down here, and you can see that it skyrockets in the dot-com bubble here at the start. So it skyrockets and goes off there, and it just continues to skyrocket all the way until 2008. Just before 2008, then plateaus, then comes back down as the deleveraging occurs. And that is really the recipe that was different between Canada and the United States back in 2008, was that there wasn't a big run up in private debt in Canada. So you're probably asking the question, well, how does that affect anything? Well, here's the thing. Household debt is generally not actually defaulted on its own. Like, it will slowly be defaulted on, like growth and recession will possibly happen. But household debt just on its own in growth is not enough to fuel a banking crisis. You need massive private debt lending as well by commercial businesses and everything like that. So when businesses are highly indebted and then households are highly indebted, essentially you have that recipe that leads to a banking crisis, because both sides of the coin now are both highly indebted. So the thing is, when all the lending conditions changed, when interest rates were rising, and all the free money machine ended in 2008, exactly like it's ending right now. It was like so similar, on so many parallels to how it is today. You basically had lots of businesses that defaulted on that debt. So when the businesses defaulted on that debt, what happens? Well, that means that a lot of those businesses go bankrupt, or they have to cut costs, they have to cut overheads, which means cutting jobs. And if the household debt is also high, when people are unemployed, when they're not getting that salary growth because inflation is running hot and the company can't afford to pay you more, guess what? The households then start to default on their debt. And then you have that disaster where it's like business defaults on the debt, household defaults on the debt. That's basically the feedback loop that you're going to go through. So people think it starts with the household, but it doesn't. It starts with the businesses, because the thing is, in Canada, that's exactly why it didn't happen. But then they filled the gap by causing the bubble in the private debt in 2008. So you can see literally after 2000 in around 2006, 2007, that's when the bubble really took off. And then it just has not come back. It's just gone straight up parabolic. And if you look at this index, like in 2009, it's at like what, 240. And then if we go back to the US, if you look in 2009, 2008, when it peaked out, it's near this 240 level, like 230. It's around around 230, something like that. So you can see that the levels are incredibly similar. But if you just look at Canada, it's just scary, because you look at the size of this thing, like it's gone over 300. So Canada has some of the most indebted businesses in the world. And this is what makes me laugh and chuckle when people are on about tech in Canada, because I'm just like, you have no clue what you're going to see over the next 5 years in tech in Canada. Because the thing is, tech companies are extremely weak here in Canada and highly in debt. And if you just look at this debt chart and you look at the costs of debt and everything that's happening right now, you're going to realize that, hey, a lot of those companies are going to be the ones going bankrupt and a lot of the jobs lost. And what are those jobs? Those are people with good credit, high paying jobs. You know, they're not the average Joe and Jane who are working down the local grocery store. These are tech entrepreneurs. These are people who work in app development. These are people getting paid over $100,000, and they are, unbeknown to them, in the firing line of all this happening. And that's what kind of makes me chuckle a bit when people are on about tech, like a few tech companies move into Calgary. And I mean, people come up with any excuse under the sun to justify rising prices and justify their terrible financial decisions. But I've heard them all on this channel, trust me. But that was a great question, USB in first try. And thank you a lot for that $5 super chat. Your support means the world. But, you know, it goes without saying, like, when you've got this private debt that's exploding like this, it's going to end badly when you've then got a tightening cycle like we've got. And I can tell you the damage has already been done. The damage has already been done. So if it just stopped right now and everything like that, it would all collapse anyway, given the time, because yields have gone so high for corporate debt. that already we are starting to see bankruptcies race upwards, especially here in Alberta. Because the thing is, it's left its scar, all these recessions on Alberta, and a lot of businesses are highly in debt in Alberta because how could they deal with all the bad times? They took on more debt to deal with those bad times. So the thing is, Alberta will unfortunately be one of the worst affected places again, and it will be in one of the worst recessions, and it will have one of the highest unemployment in Canada. And we saw we foresaw what was going to happen with that in 2020 when unemployment spiked everywhere and the mass layoffs happened. They were a warning of what was to come, because essentially what it showed you was all the companies that were so weak that they said, hey, we're just cutting, we're closing up, we don't know what this is going to be like, and we don't know if we're going to have the money. Because any business that could afford to pay their workers for 6-12 months, let's say, or had enough cash, they're not going to say, I'm laying you all off just like that, because that's essentially like just getting rid of your workforce. There's no saying that they'll come back, and then you could lose your whole business, because employees basically run the business. It's not the CEO like people like to think. So it's kind of crazy. So yeah, anyways, it's interesting. So I'm just going to see what you guys are saying. Revert to means is in the house. John says silver is the way to go. The biggest problem is you get so much for your currency. I wouldn't say that's the biggest problem, but yeah, I love silver too. Silver is a great thing to have, physical silver. But yeah, physical silver is a little bit more speculative than gold, I would say. Gold is more of that insurance policy, but physical silver is a good thing to hold as well. It's just one thing that I would sell come the time when it explodes in price. Whereas gold, I'm always going to hold on to that for the rest of my life, because that is the insurance policy on the money, and it increases as your money increases, and as your wealth increases, so should your gold, or it should contract with your wealth. So you have a certain percentage aside to go to the amount of capital you have, and that you can work that out to whatever you want. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not gonna do that. So it's Canada and Australia even more so. Australia had no recession for 29 years, meaning they missed 2001, 2002, and 2008, 2009. Yeah, and it was the same in Canada. And you know what? I think we need to do at some point probably a video, which we should just go. I'm going to have to go over these on my own time. But if they're the same, then I'll just quickly do a video. So maybe it can grab some people from that audience to actually see this as well. But the thing is, if it's the same sort of thing where private debt wasn't high enough and now private debt's exploded, then yeah, I think it would warrant doing a video about it. So it's Revert to Means is in the house. He's got a great channel. Check him out. So my humble opinion, silver is the most undervalued asset currently. I sleep well at night, even on a day like today. Yeah, silver is hugely undervalued. When markets get extremely volatile, obviously silver and gold are sold off. Oil's sold off. Everything is sold off really that's liquid to cover people's margin calls. And that will happen. So people get scared when it goes down in price. I don't really get scared. I start thinking if it goes down in price anymore, I'm going to look to buy at this point, because it's a good buying point. And if you really believe in something long term, that's what you do. You're not scared when it starts going down in price. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy that some people think about it. I see cracks in real estate in Toronto, at least, with further rate hikes coming. It is going to be a nightmare. Will these governments start another QE? Is there a chance? Of course, there's always a chance. But I think if they do that, with what's happening with the Japanese yen, with what's happened in Turkey, it's going to be, that's when you're really going to need gold. And that isn't financial advice, but that's when the currency is just going to go through the floor, because nobody is going to want to own a currency whilst they're doing that. So I don't know. I don't think it would happen, to be honest. I think if inflation is high, if inflation remains high, I don't think we'll see rate cuts or QE. I think at worst, if a recession hit, I think they would just say, look, we're holding our rate at neutral. We're neutral here. We're not stimulating. We're not tightening either. And that's what they're calling it, neutral, for a reason, I think. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, there's always a chance it could happen. Now, if inflation goes down, that's a different story. Yeah, you could see rate cuts. I don't think QE would be the first thing they would resort to by any stretch. I think, I'm not sure if they'll see that in the same way after what happened with QE during 2020, because that was really just a disaster and it all comes at the wrong time. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I think it's honestly insane. So yeah, these I'm just seeing what you're saying in the comments. The Guardian says, hey Luke, sorry I'm late, going to watch from the start now. Keep up the great work, buddy. Thank you very much, really appreciate that comment. Just seeing what you got. So yeah, it's yeah, anyways, I think I need to do another live stream, maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. But there's another thing that I want to go through, which is this OFSI has come out and said, oh, there's a lot of fraud in the housing market. And if you guys haven't seen, I'm going to pin in the comment actually 2 videos I did on fraud, which was when the channel had like only a couple of hundred subscribers, I think, at that point. And I just literally went to Reddit and picked up loads of the people that were just saying about how they were committing fraud. And, you know, if you can find something like that so easily, it's so blatantly obvious that there must be tons of stuff like that going on. Because it takes a lot for somebody to come on to a public forum and say, hey, I'm committing fraud. What do I do about it? You know, so I'll link those videos in the pinned comment. So check those out. But yeah, it's that will be a great live stream to be on. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for being on tonight's live stream. And thank you, US Being First, for the super chat. Jeff, Daniel, David, HP, Revert to Means, all you guys, Jan, US Being First, Prahanth, I probably butchered that name. Daniel, Marco is in the house. Trader 586 in the house. Trent, David Sutton's in the house. All you guys, thank you so much for watching. Please smashy on that like button to get the YouTube algo going. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace. See ya.